And welcome to Halitics for the second time. And I think now you can hear me. And just seeing me's not enough. It looks really weird when I'm flapping my gums. And as the old ball coach would say, the rehearsal's going really well. I thought I had all my tech issues resolved. The last couple of shows, Wednesday and Thursday, were really good. I thought excellent. And the Wednesday call with Arlen, is Trump the worst ever or not even close, has done really, really well. Our second most popular video, number one, Sasha Stone. And I give Sasha Stone 95% of the credit for the over 1,000 viewers we have for that video. I thought it was excellent, Paul, and she's reached out to her folks and promoted it. So that's been really nice. More subscribers, and we're going to just keep growing this thing. We're just going to keep pushing this thing. This is the Friday free for all. That means you join me. 363-7190, 363-7190. You call in and you should be able to talk to me. That is the goal. We are trying to do something a little different compared to your normal live stream YouTube videos, which generally are for folks who watch after the fact. This is no longer considered appointment videos. In other words, you make an appointment to watch at a particular time. And obviously, I want you to watch and listen whenever you get a chance. But I also do want to talk to you. I also think that we're going to make a better world, a better society. We're going to come to some decisions about how to do that, what strategies to follow, even when we have very significant differences and disagreements, as Arlen and I do. We can only get there, though. We can only work together. We can only organize in a progressive direction if we talk to each other. Not just I'm talking to you, not just I'm telling you what I think, but also you're sharing your views, and we come to some kind of a consensus on the best strategy to move forward. I was thinking maybe I was getting there a little bit with Arlen the other day. A little bit of disappointment. Some of his posts since then, I feel, have not reflected what I believe we had kind of agreed about, that maybe just focusing our ire on Trump is not ideal, and that demonizing him, treating as though he's some kind of unique specimen, some unique version of evil, is not only not productive, it does not help us move society, move our nation, protect our environment, which we're right now destroying. My view is not only that it isn't useful, but it's actually counterproductive. In other words, when we go after Trump as the source of all evil and his fooled, besotted chumps who follow him, and that's not my belief. I don't see them that way at all. I see Trump supporters as people who are just like me, just like you, want a decent life for themselves and their families, and believe that they have gotten a raw deal from the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. So I disagree with them on some issues for sure, and probably our values aren't identical by any means, but I don't see them as some kind of unique specimen of evil or human or different kind of a human than I am. I think we're all pretty similar, to be perfectly honest, and we all kind of want the same things. And the differences that we have tend to stem more from our differing economic circumstances and future prospects than anything else. So, to my way of thinking, we've got to figure out a way to reach out to people who vote in ways that we don't agree with. And also, that outreach has to include talking to them. I have major issues with the Democratic Party. I think they're, if the lesser of two evils, if they are indeed the lesser of two evils, they're not that much less evil. And not only are they not much less evil, but they actually are facilitating, enabling Republican evil. So I'm just simply not going to act as though Democrats, or even when I vote Democratic, I'm somehow morally superior to others. I just wanted to make sure my audio was out there. It is. You can join me, 240-363-7190. Again, this is about a dialogue. This is about us coming to some kind of agreement, some kind of consensus on the right path forward. So is the right path forward supporting either Marion Williamson or RFK Jr. for president is it next year? Yeah, right. We're 23 to 24. Next year, right. In the Democratic primary. Now, first, I want to just say what I said. You may have heard this before. Well, you wouldn't have heard it because you couldn't hear me before. I watched a little bit of Jimmy Dore on this. Usually you shouldn't. I think the theory is you don't promote other videographers, you don't promote other broadcasters on your own broadcast. But Jimmy was spot on. What he asked RFK Jr., why aren't you running for president as a third party challenger, as a challenger to both the Republicans and the Democrats? Why run in the primary? And I didn't feel that RFK gave any kind of a satisfying response. It was, well, we can make the Democratic Party. It's not hopeless. It's not it's not beyond redemption. Well, I beg to defer. I beg to defer on that because of what we've seen, for example, from folks like AOC and others in the squad, Jamie Raskin and Maryland. I think they have demonstrated that they're firmly in the plutocratic, neoliberal, neocon camp because they have made this a pure partisan fight. It's Republicans versus Democrats. It's good Democrat, evil Republican, not. Both parties have large evil components, are corrupt, and we need to challenge them both. I don't think you can be inside that belly of this beast and be able to ultimately slay it. I don't see that. I think RFK Jr. is just wrong. I also think I think he has zero chance, right? No chance whatsoever of getting the Democratic nomination, just as Marion Williamson has maybe a one or maybe a slightly better chance. Although, to be honest, I'd rather, I'll vote for RFK Jr. If this is the lineup, let's put it this way. If the lineup in 2024, my choices in the Democratic primary are Marianne Williamson, RFK Jr., or Joe Biden, I'll vote for RFK Jr. Right now, that's where I am. That could change, but I doubt it. But that's where I would and I've got issues with RFK Jr. I don't like his really, really strong anti-vaxxer stance. I get it. I understand why some people find it appealing. I don't condemn them for it. I don't think it's intellectually justified. I don't think it can be defended. His attacks on the pertussis vaccination in particular, claiming that it caused autism. There was one study that seemed to suggest that might be the case. Debunked. The thimerosal has not been shown to be a cause of autism. So I just cannot, in good conscience, view that as a legitimate or appropriate stance for a presidential candidate to take. That said, RFK Jr. is not just about anti-vaxxer, cred. And he got some things right about the COVID situation. Now, I will say this. I'm not on either side when it comes to COVID. I mean, there's the anti-COVID vaxxers and there's the COVID vax at any cost. And I think they're both pretty wrong. I mean, really, the COVID vaccine, it seems clear to me, in the early stages of this disease really did make a difference. People who got it, I got the vaccine. I didn't get it a serious case. Now, you never know. You can't prove a negative. Doesn't mean I would have. But it does seem, I think the statistics bear out that highly vaxxed populations had lower incidences of COVID. They didn't have none. You could still get it. And the promise is, and this is one of the reasons why I think people find RFK Jr. to be somewhat credible on this issue, because the promises that were made, surprise, surprise, by and I'm going to just take Marianne out of the picture because right now I'm just talking about RFK. We'll get to her in a little bit. Surprise, surprise, the big pharma industry made all these promises. Oh, you get it, you won't get sick, right? That's what they said about it. It's not true. It was false. You could get sick. People did get sick. If you took the COVID vaccine, you could transmit it. But it also is true, it seems very clear, the statistics bear out that it reduced the virulence of the disease. It reduced the likelihood of a contagion, a mass epidemic contagion. And it did buy time in the sense that it drew out the period of time when we had the pandemic raging, in the sense that the virus became less fatal, less deadly. So now it's a lot less serious to get COVID in most cases, not in all, than it was. So the COVID vaccines, Moderna and Pfizer, they were developed in ways I find abhorrent for pure profit, but nevertheless, they saved lives. They did. They didn't do all they were promised to do, but they did save some lives. So I think RFK Jr. is wrong there. I also think people like Fauci and those who demonize anyone who criticizes or even expresses any doubts or questions about the efficacy of these cures, alleged cures, they're wrong too, and they're doing it because they're corrupt. But so it's a balancing test, like many things, not everything. Sometimes there's clear right and wrong, but with the vaccines, it's a balancing test. So RFK, I think he was kind of wrong on the vaccines, more wrong than right, not completely, but he has gotten some things pretty right. And I want to play a little bit about from this what do we want to call it? This interview, because I was really looking. I really want to hear RFK on RFK. That's pretty important to me. Instead of just hearing what everyone else tells us about RFK, he's an anti-vaxxer, he's this, he's that. Let's hear the man himself, okay? Let's hear what RFK has said, what his views really are in his own words. And I think that's important. And I'm not going to talk about we're not going to play the vaccine segment here, I hope anyway, unless I screw this up, which I might have. Interesting interview here, Yahoo Finance. And remember, I am calling this group, the two of them, the mild bunch. So why are they the mild bunch? Why are Marianne and RFK Jr., in my opinion, the mild bunch? They're not going to shake the foundations of our political economy, of our corrupt, for-profit, at all costs economy. They're not going to do that. And this video, I hope, will give you a little insight into why I believe that. So here's RFK Jr. on the climate catastrophe.
If we had a true free market economy, those industries would be paying the costs of global warming to all of us. They wouldn't be able to externalize those costs.
So how would you mitigate that then?
Well, there's two questions. How do you fortify the planet for the upcoming cataclysm, for rising seas and disappearing water? And the other is what can we do to mitigate future impacts? And to me, the answer to the first one is clear. We actually, we impose market discipline on the energy markets. We take away the subsidies to coal and oil. According to IMF, those two industries get about $5.2 trillion in subsidies annually, and they couldn't compete in a market. In fact, last year, 63% of the new generation that was constructed worldwide was renewables, and it wasn't constructed because government ordered it. It was constructed because the markets are dictating it. It's by far the cheapest form of energy. Solar today, according to Bloomberg Energy, is about 17 cents per kilowatt hour, whereas, nuke is 10 times that.
Right.
Oh, and coal is 5 times that, and gas, coal is about 7 or 8 times that. Gas is triple that.
Right.
So if people really believed in free market capitalism, every subsidy,
Right.
every pollution is a subsidy.
Right. Right.
And,
Right.
and if we really believed in free market capitalism, we could solve this problem overnight.
What Democratic candidate has the best environmental platform? Which one do you support then?
Well, I would say all of them have a better environmental platform than the current president.
All right, I'm going to stop it there. And I'm going to get into this a little bit. And again, why I call
If
our
we had a true
friend,
free market,
let me just get rid of that. I always have trouble with that issue, and we'll get to Marion in a little bit. But why I have issues with what RFK Jr. said, and what I agree with. When he talked about market discipline on the fossil fuel industry, I thought he was going to talk about a fossil fuels tax. That is what we absolutely need. Yes, we should eliminate subsidies, and there are subsidies for drilling. But the bottom line is, and I get this from actually Tom Hartman, somebody I'm not always a fan of. I want to thank Arlen for this. He got me Tom Hartman's book, The Last Hours of Ancient Sunlight. There's so much energy in the barrel of oil, in the coal, in the natural gas, because it took millions and millions of years for that energy, those calories, to be concentrated. So they're just pure 100% energy. RFK says solar is cheaper. I really don't. I've heard that before. I just don't buy it. I don't get it. I don't know where that supposedly comes from. The energy, all energy ultimately comes from the sun. But the energy that you dig out of the ground with fossil fuels has been concentrated over, again, an extraordinary amount of time. So that is the most efficient form of energy, in a sense of calories per barrel, or however else you have to concentrate the solar energy that's right now coming down on the earth to generate electricity. And even if it were true that in some places where you have lots and lots of sun, or you have volcanoes, and it is, or a tremendous amount of wind, you can harness that energy relatively inefficiently. There are many places where that isn't the case. And burning coal, burning oil, petroleum, natural gas is cheaper. We have seen, and I talked about this yesterday, there's ever more energy being consumed. When I say energy, I mean fossil fuel energy. We are not, despite ramping up our clean green energy capacity, we're still nowhere near where we need to be in terms of total demand, and demand keeps rising. So we cannot simply rely on, as RFK says, the free market by eliminating subsidies. We absolutely must impose a tax. We must reduce demand for these fuels, not simply stop making it a little bit cheaper to extract and produce them. That won't do it. That's not going to come close. So he's just wrong there. Now, maybe he doesn't want to talk about a tax. I don't know. Maybe he feels like it would be a political suicide. I don't know. But he's wrong. We absolutely have to have a fossil fuels tax if we're going to have any hope of saving the planet. And I base that on what I played yesterday, what I showed you yesterday. Demand for fossil fuels keeps rising, keeps going up. The infrastructure, the capacity keeps rising, and our consumption, in fact, keeps rising. And none of that is consistent with saving the planet. So RFK Jr. just gets that flat out wrong, and it irritates me that he does, that he presents the view that somehow all we have to do is stop making it a little bit cheaper for companies to drill in the Arctic. No, that's not going to do it. Another statement that RFK Jr. said, now again, I think he's better than Biden, because Biden hasn't even eliminated the subsidies. And I think RFK Jr. gets it. Clearly, he's talked about the environment a lot. But again, the mild bunch, right? He's part of this mild bunch challenging Biden. He's not prepared to actually demand or insist on or call for the kinds of solutions we absolutely need. Like Bernie actually kind of did in 2016, saying we need tariffs. Tariffs were not popular then, and yet Trump imposed them, and then Biden kept some of them. So it was the right answer. They haven't gone nearly far enough, but it was a bit of a transformative response to our offshoring economy. RFK Jr. is not talking about anything transformative. He's not talking about raising the cost at the pump to a point where people just simply will stop driving gasoline-powered cars. But that's really what we need to do. He said something else. He said he thinks every Democratic platform, this was before the 2020 or during the 2020 primaries, he hasn't endorsed anyway. He thinks every Democrat is better on the energy and environment than any Republican. Well, I don't know if I agree with that, but I'll say this. It's not a nuanced answer. The nuanced answer is Republicans on trade are better for the environment than Democrats are when it comes to trade. Free trade is the biggest driver of the climate cataclysm right now. Not by any means the sole driver. And eliminating it won't save our planet. But it's a huge part of the problem. Probably the biggest. Transportation is the number one source of greenhouse gas emissions. And transportation across the planet has absolutely skyrocketed, ballooned because of trade, free trade, because of all those filthy diesel container ships plying the waves, chewing up the Pacific, and the jets going back and forth from north to south and south to north and across the Atlantic. That is why we have failed in any way to make any meaningful dent, I believe, in the consumption of fossil fuels. And again, China, with its booming economy based on manufacturing for the West, is ramping up its capacity to make energy with coal. So, no, it's not absolutely clear that every Democrat is better on the environment than any Republican. And you even can look at Obama, who vastly expanded our production of natural gas and petroleum. So no, it's too simplistic. It's not a good answer. So I just am not gonna call RFK Jr. anything much but just another relatively progressive Democrat who isn't really going after the whole establishment. He's not going after the plutocrats, the plutocrats. Now, if I was a real cynic, I would say, well, he's from a wealthy family, the Kennedys. Life has been good for RFK. He's married to a movie star, Cheryl Hines. Things are good in his life. And, he's only prepared to go so far. I don't know if I believe that. I don't know if that's the reason. I don't usually like to criticize people for who they are. I criticize them for what they stand for and what they call for. But it is true that RFK Jr. has a good life, a really, really, really good life. And that may be part of the reason he is not prepared to take on the corporate elites in any real meaningful way. It may also be why he's not prepared to take on Joe Biden from a third party. And I should just say the Green Party. There's more than three parties. There's a lot of parties. There's a Libertarian Party, there's a Working Families Party, there's a Green Party. Run as a Green, RFK Jr. Run as a Green. Now, I am not, look, I have said I will support right now in the 2020, unless something changes, my current plan at this moment is to support Joe Biden for president. But I don't know whether I will or not. But I'll tell you someone I would be amazed if there's any chance I would support them for president, and that would be Marianne Williamson. I so don't get the love that she seems to engender from some progressives, and I've seen it. I've seen them posting, for her on Facebook or what have you. It's the woo-woo stuff. It's a load of crap. I mean, we're talking about someone who's a hustler. She's like a Trump. She's a phone. I don't know if she's a phony. She may believe her own con, but that doesn't mean you have to believe it. That doesn't mean you have to think that this person who's this airy fairy crap has any legitimacy to it. When I did the radio pro station, and this is one of the reasons I'm glad I don't do it anymore, I would play a lot of those, like, I don't know, the pills and the lifestyle shows. And I always felt really uncomfortable. And some of the people who did those were really good, nice people that I liked. And I think they believed it. But it's a crock. It's just not true. So, this is from Marianne Williamson right now. This is not her website 10 years ago. This is not a new, she has not turned over a new leaf or rejecting her woo-woo stuff. This is how she makes a living. This is what? Gwyneth Paltrow stuff. Spiritual Makeover, Marianne Wilson, 4-part workshop offering universal wisdom. I mean, please don't fall for it, folks. And don't fall for this hustler. If she were running against Biden alone, would I vote for her? I don't know. Maybe I would, because to me, policy trumps everything else. And I guess her policies are a little better. But I also want someone who has who's demonstrated some level of knowledge about politics. And I don't think she has. And that, by the way, could be a good argument against RFK Jr. Actually, a very good argument against him. The vax stuff scares me too. With him, on balance, I'd probably vote for him, but that could change. So here's Marianne. Let's see. Do we? To be fair, it's a website, right? That's her website. What about her videos? Is she still embracing that I don't know, that crap, that cult stuff? Is she still embracing it? Well, let's find out. Here's her site. Let's see what's going on. This is more Marianne Williamson. Oh, I lost it there. Let's see. Here we go.
Welcome to Commune. We are on a mission to inspire, heal, pass down wisdom, and bring the world closer together.
I'd like to talk to you now about some spiritual basics. I am a student of A Course in Miracles, but A Course in Miracles doesn't claim to have any kind of monopoly on truth. Truth with a capital T is one, and it is spoken in many different ways, many different spiritual, religious, and psychotherapeutic systems of expression. A Course in Miracles is not a religion. It does use traditional
crap. Okay? And this is where, like, if people are going to support that stuff or vote for somebody who takes that who presents that, I'm like, why do this? Really? This is where we are as a group of people. And I mean, are we that desperate? I guess would be my answer. I was hoping you wouldn't see all those slides, but there you go. Are we that desperate that we would actually embrace, somebody who's talking about A Course in Miracles? I hope not. I hope we're not there, because to me, it sends a message that I failed. Please, let's use our minds, folks. Please, let's use our minds. And I see so much of this where people, we're desperate. Like, I get it. We're desperate. We're desperate for a savior. That's why people voted for Trump. They looked around, they saw terrible Republicans, they saw terrible Democrats, they saw policies that had hurt them. Trump was promised a difference, right? He said, we're at no more of these horrible wars. He actually went after the military. He promised to bring jobs back. He did have somewhat of a coherent platform. I'm not seeing that even with Marianne Williamson, but I get it. We're desperate. Maybe A Course in Miracles is better than what we got now. Plants falling apart. I don't know. Maybe that's the answer. Maybe, but not in my world, but maybe in yours. All right, let's go on. Let's just get through a couple more topics. And again, this is about us. Look, if you like Marianne Williamson, you call in right now. I will be more than happy to talk about why I have problems with her, but at the same time, listen to why you don't. I would be very, very happy to hear your view. But before we get, I do want to get to the Trump indictment and why it's so weak, so feeble. But policy for me means everything, or 99%. Yeah, I like some competency. I like demonstrating that you're not, a kook. Marianne Williamson is just wrong on Ukraine. I know some of you agree with her, right? Think we should be in Ukraine. Think we should be providing military support for Ukraine. Think we should keep this war going until the last Ukrainian is dead. I ultimately disagree. I can't support somebody who takes the view that it's justified. I can't support somebody who thinks that we can fight for poor, struggling, and working people in America while also maintaining a war, an extraordinarily expensive, deadly conflict on the other side of the planet that has nothing to do with us and that is only making things worse. I can't support that person. And I can't support somebody who makes a ultimate claim that is just not supportable, that any withdrawal of U.S. support for Ukraine would mean the end of Ukraine. That's simply not true. That's simply false. We could definitely and should be pushing for peace, and we could get it. So, that to me puts her out of the running. All right, let's get to this. This is interesting. So our friends at Vox, one of the things you may notice that I try to do when I'm presenting theory, and by the way, Ginsburg Haltix, do please subscribe. I have a unique voice. No one else out there says what I say. No one else has the views I have. And by the way, no one else gives you the opportunity to share your beliefs, your positions, the way, for example, we did with Arlen just the other day. So subscribe, join me. I like to have, when I'm arguing a position, I like to find sources that take, to bolster my view, to bolster my position. I like to find sources that seem to be going against their general partisan bent. So Vox, clearly a neo-lib tool, clearly in the pocket of the Democratic Party, war, pro-war, and Trump haters from way back. So if Vox tells you that the case against Trump is based on a dubious legal theory, that's pretty credible, right? Now, if Fox News tells you that, well, maybe you don't believe them, right? I mean, I wouldn't. I wouldn't take Fox News's word on the legitimacy of the charges against Trump. I wouldn't buy it. Not at all. But I kind of do buy what Vox tells me if they're saying this case is a crock, because Vox is clearly in the anti-Trump camp. And yet here they're taking a pro-Trump position. So let's go right through it real quick. No one knows if Donald Trump can in fact be prosecuted for payoff and for, the records, right? I mean, this is all about records, business records. And Vox is saying, hey, we don't even know. No one knows. It's never been done before. The actual felony counts arise out of allegedly false entries. So we don't even know exactly what those entries are. I'm going to assume they are false. I mean, the money did go to Michael Cohen, and then he used that money, as far as we know, or it's fungible, but amounts that went to Michael Cohen subsequently saw similar amounts paid to Stormy Daniels for the story of her affair with Donald. So it does seem pretty clear. I mean, and Michael Cohen was convicted of an illegal payout to Daniels. So yes, they probably were false. Those entries that Trump made. But the problem is, even if they are, it's not necessarily a felony under New York state law. Does New York state law allow you even to prosecute for violating federal? It's a federal law that made the payout to Stormy Daniels was not illegal under New York state law. It was not a felony. You can pay somebody not to reveal the truth about something unless it's a crime, right? I mean, I can't pay you not to reveal criminal activities to protect myself. That I can't do unless I violated your rights. Unfortunately, you can do that. I believe if somebody assaults another person and then pays them off, that's legal to buy their silence. But I don't think you can pay a witness not to say they saw a murder if they saw it. I might be wrong about that. In any event, under New York state law, Trump's payments, even if they were clearly to Stormy Daniels and were made for the express purpose of avoiding federal election law, federal campaign law, didn't violate New York law, violated federal law. Trump's being prosecuted in New York under New York state law by a New York state prosecutor. Any prosecution for illegal federal campaign payments would have to be by a federal prosecutor. And the feds declined to prosecute, feeling, I guess, they didn't have that strong a case. It's not clear if that was the reason, but may well be. They just said, hey, yeah, well, Trump's going to say the intent wasn't really to do this, and it wasn't to shut her up, and it wasn't really a campaign expenditure. So you don't have the New York state prosecutor can't say Donald Trump was convicted by a federal jury of illegal campaign contribution to Stormy Daniels that was not reported. The New York state prosecutor can't say that. All the New York state prosecutor can say is, well, we think it was illegal, but we can't even prove that because we don't have a federal conviction, and we can't prosecute him for it. It's a pretty thin ice, to say the least. So we'll see whether anything happens, but if Trump's ultimately convicted. But it's pretty, like I said, very thin ice. And this is what I did discuss a few days ago with but I wanted to really, bring it out in more detail. I did discuss this with Sasha Stone. So more from Vox. The felony, and I already explained this, the felony statute requires Bragg, he's the prosecutor, Alvin Bragg, to prove that Trump, the New York State District Attorney, City District Attorney, to prove that Trump falsified records to cover up a crime. He may have evidence that Trump acted to cover up a federal crime. I think he does, but it's not clear that he can point to the federal crime, for which Trump was not convicted to charge or even charged in order to charge Trump under the New York state law. Super weak case. And, I see people out there and they're so happy and, oh my God, they're doing their little dances, their icon dances. He's probably going to get off, folks. He's probably going to skate. So why do this? What's the benefit? Well, one argument is, and I don't think I have the screen. Was that my last slide? Unfortunately, I think it was. Yeah, and I had we may get to Tennessee in a minute. It's 11:50. I thought this was going to be a short show, but it hasn't proven to be. So I won't, maybe we'll talk. I did want to get to that Tennessee expulsion. One theory why they're prosecuting Trump in New York, kind of like the three-dimensional chess game. We prefer, right, Biden and Biden's handlers would prefer to go up against Trump than DeSantis. They feel Trump is easier to beat. They already beat him once. They can beat him again. DeSantis is a wild card. He seems a little bit more like an adult in the room. Maybe we'd have trouble. Our popularity is very low. Biden's popularity is low. It's not the lowest it's ever been, but it's not high. So maybe that's part of it. We're trying to bolster Trump, get people to feel bad for him. And it seems like that might be the case. It seems like it's kind of working. I don't know if I buy it. I just don't. I mean, it just seems a little bit of a stretch. It could backfire really easily. Not that the Democrats don't make lots of stupid decisions that can backfire, but yeah, I don't think that's what this is about. I think it's just peak. It's just we got to get this guy any way we possibly can. We hate him and we can't prosecute him for, all the things that we do too, like taking bribes, right? They can't do that. By the way, speaking of taking bribes, how about this Clarence Thomas deal? 10 years, every year he goes on some super expensive vacation with some ultra rich Republican right winger. He never acknowledges it, never recused himself from any case that could involve that right winger. I haven't looked at all the details, but it's just extraordinary corruption at the highest level, at the very highest level. It's a swamp. That's where we live in. That's our government. That's why people are so disgusted with it, so hate it, and blame both parties. And rightfully so. And rightfully so. All right, before we trot out of here, I do want to just show you, this was really ugly. America's a seething cauldron. All right, before I go, do click subscribe. You can see at the bottom right, there's my nice little politics square in the bottom right of your screen. Do click like, do click subscribe. America's a seething cauldron. Let's go down to the volunteer state. Massacre that right, 6 people murdered, 3 school children. The ability of people to buy guns is just ridiculously easy. There's zero, and some people say, well, there's no way we can get to any kind of a compromise. It's just not true. Most Americans, even most gun owners, do believe we should keep guns out of the hands of people with mental illness, that we should keep guns out of the hands of people with convictions. They do believe in background checks. Most Americans, or very many, would even support limits on assault weapons. The problem is the politicians themselves are corrupt. Politicians are bought and paid for by the NRA, by gun makers. And this is an area where Democrats could really make progress if they would be prepared to call out the corruption. But of course, they're not, because they're corrupt themselves, maybe not so much bought and paid for by gun makers, but for example, by Wall Street. Right? I mean, what was it? The Democrats wouldn't even make it illegal for them to insider trade. It's a swamp. It's a swamp.
We're voting on House Resolution 63. All those in favor, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote?
Now,
All right.
on whether or not to expel Justin Pearson will be announced.
Take the vote.
Aye, 69, 26 nays.
Having received the concurrence of 2/3 of the members to which the House is entitled in the Constitution of the State of Tennessee, House Resolution 63 is hereby adopted. Without objection, the motion reconsiders table. Pursuant to Article 2, Section 12 of the Constitution of the State of Tennessee, I hereby declare Representative Justin J. Pearson of the 86th
Justin Pearson, as you're just seeing right there, has been expelled with 69 votes.
All right, it's just, that's where we are. That's America. It's a seething cauldron. We've been in this place before. Before the Civil War, you had people caning each other on the floor of the House of Representatives. when you have massive inequality, when you have a government that's completely or almost completely non-responsive to the citizens, to the demands of the people, and you see that in Tennessee there with a Republican large majority of Republican legislators completely unconcerned with mass murders and massacres and easy access to firearms. This is what you get. I'll be back.